Today we're tackling a sweet topic with a low glycemic twist. The best sugar substitutes for diabetics. With so many options out there, it can be a real challenge to figure out which ones are actually good for you, especially if you're managing diabetes or trying to improve blood sugar control. So we're going to break down the world of sweeteners, from natural sugar substitutes to artificial sweeteners, and give you the lowdown on which ones are the healthiest choices and which ones you might want to think twice about. We'll explore how these sweeteners affect your blood sugar and overall health. Plus, I'll share some practical tips on how to make healthier choices that satisfy those sweet cravings without compromising your health. Okay, friends, let's do this. Now, let's talk about why it's so crucial to keep a close eye on our sugar intake, especially for those dealing with insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes. While weight loss does improve outcomes for people with these conditions, that's not the whole story. It's not just about weight management. It's about your body's ability to process sugar effectively and the long-term health implications of consuming processed sugar. Here's the deal. Every time we eat sugar, it enters our bloodstream and raises our blood sugar levels. In response, our pancreas releases insulin, a hormone that helps get glucose into our cells so that they can use it for energy. Over time, consuming high amounts of sugar requires more and more insulin to process. Our cells become resistant to the insulin signal, which is what we call insulin resistance. And if things aren't addressed at this stage, insulin resistance progresses, leading to higher and higher blood sugar and insulin levels and setting the stage for prediabetes and eventually type 2 diabetes. Regularly consuming high sugar foods can lead to these spikes in blood sugar and insulin levels, contributing to this cycle of insulin resistance. And here's the kicker. Not only does this increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes, but it can also lead to other serious health issues like heart disease, obesity, certain types of cancer, and cognitive diseases. Did you know that Alzheimer's disease is often referred to as type 3 diabetes and is associated with insulin resistance in the brain? Sugar raises inflammation levels in our body. It impairs mitochondria, which are the little powerhouses in your cells that make energy, causing an energy roller coaster, and it impacts your hormones. And those are just a few examples of how sugar impacts our health. That's why it's so vital for everyone, especially those with insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes, to be mindful of their sugar intake. Reducing sugar consumption can help manage blood sugar levels, improve energy, improve insulin sensitivity, and decrease the risk of diabetes and other chronic conditions. But don't worry, this does not mean that you have to give up on sweetness altogether. That's where sugar substitutes come in, offering the sweetness we enjoy without the same effects on blood sugar and insulin levels. So let's start by talking about my 3 favorite safe sugar substitutes for diabetics. Number 1, monk fruit. It's also known as lohan guo and is a small green melon native to southern China. Monk fruit has no calories and a glycemic index of 0, which means it does not raise blood sugar levels in the same way that sugar does. This makes it a great option for anyone looking to avoid those blood sugar spikes that sugar causes. Monk fruit contains antioxidants called mogicides that are shown to have anti-cancer and anti-diabetic effects in animal studies, which may even be due to the anti-inflammatory effects that monk fruit is shown to have. Another benefit of using monk fruit extract is that it doesn't have the same aftertaste that some other sugar substitutes, like artificial sweeteners and even sometimes stevia, can have. Monk fruit extract has a mild fruity taste that's similar to sugar, making it a great alternative. It's 150 to 200 times sweeter than sugar, so when it's used in powdered or granulated form, it's often blended with other sugar substitutes to get a sweetness similar to sugar. So just make sure to read the ingredient lists on any products you purchase to make sure that the other ingredients in the blend are healthy. For baking, you might consider a product like this one, which is monk fruit blended with allulose, which is another healthy sugar substitute that I'll touch more on in a moment. In addition to the granulated and powdered blends, monk fruit can be used as an extract. I use a few drops in my morning coffee, in tea, and in recipes where a liquid sweetener makes sense. Number 2, stevia. Stevia is probably one of the most widely used and widely available natural sugar substitutes. It's derived from the leaves of the Stevia rebaudiana plant, native to South America. Much like monk fruit, it has no calories and a glycemic index of 0. So again, it does not raise blood sugar levels in the same way that sugar does. Stevia has a slightly sweet herbal taste that's similar to sugar, but some people still find stevia to have a bitter aftertaste. So it's all about your unique taste preference. I personally find it to have an aftertaste when I use it in something like coffee, but I don't notice that when I use it in baking. For example, I have a cinnamon flax muffin recipe that I share in the Diabetes Nutrition Workshop, for which I use a powdered stevia as the sweetener, and there's no aftertaste in something like that. Another nice option for stevia use is in soda alternatives. Since regular soda has around 40 grams of sugar in it, which can cause a massive blood sugar spike, switching to a stevia sweetened soda can be a really great option. I personally like the Zevia brand of soda when I'm occasionally looking for something with a little more sweetness than sparkling water. And it's also the sweetener that's used in the protein powder that I use on a regular basis. Stevia is 150 to 450 times sweeter than sugar, so a little goes a very long way. Baking with stevia can be tricky because its consistency and chemical properties are different from sugar, so amounts just need to be adjusted with that in mind. Again, often baking formulations using stevia will be blended with another sugar substitute, so make sure to read those labels. The glycosides, flavonoids, and fatty acids in stevia provide potential health benefits. Studies have indicated stevia can support kidney and oral health and has anti-cancer, antimicrobial, antioxidant, and immune supportive properties. Number 3, allulose, which is also known as D-allulose, is a low-calorie sugar substitute that's becoming more widely used and available. Allulose occurs naturally in small quantities in some fruits, such as figs and raisins. However, it's predominantly produced through a process that involves enzymatic conversion of fructose. Now, allulose actually has 0.4 calories per gram versus table sugar, which has 4 calories per gram. But allulose is not absorbed by the body, so it has no impact on blood glucose or insulin levels. Allulose also has a similar taste and texture to sugar, unlike some artificial sweeteners or natural sugar substitutes, which can have a bitter aftertaste or a different texture when used in baking. Allulose will caramelize, thicken, and get sticky, which other sugar substitutes don't do. So it really is a great option in those recipes where a caramelizing effect is needed. Overall, given that its taste and chemical properties are so similar to sugar, allulose is an excellent substitute for sugar in baking and cooking. In addition to this allulose monk fruit blend that I use as a replacement for regular sugar, I also have an allulose-based brown sugar that I use in baking. Before we get into the options that you might want to steer clear of, I wanted to mention that if desserts are your weakness, you're not alone. I've actually created a free resource called the Diabetes Desserts Guide, in which I share which pantry staples you might want to swap out in your baking. And I share 7 delicious diabetes-friendly dessert recipes. I'll link to the guide for you below. Okay, now let's talk about options that may not be as ideal. First, erythritol is a sugar alcohol that's often used as a sugar substitute. It's found naturally in some fruits and vegetables in small amounts, and small amounts are even made by the body. It's used in beverages, foods, and sometimes added to granulated and powdered sugar substitute blends. It also has no impact on blood glucose levels. However, last year evidence emerged indicating it may warrant caution. Research published in March of 2023 found that erythritol may be associated with increased cardiovascular risk. In vitro and ex vivo studies with erythritol found that platelet aggregation and adhesion, clumping together, increased with increasing doses of erythritol. More studies are needed to determine whether erythritol really is to blame for the increased cardiovascular risk reported. But in the meantime, you may want to switch to one of the sweeteners that I just mentioned until we know more. Now, artificial sweeteners are often consumed in an effort to reduce risk of diabetes and obesity since they're low or 0 calorie and have no glycemic effect. The irony is that artificial sweeteners actually appear to increase the risk of obesity and diabetes. Artificial sweeteners include sweeteners like aspartame, acesulfame potassium, sucralose, and saccharin. The research on these artificial sweeteners indicates that in addition to increasing risk for obesity and diabetes, they're also associated with increased cancer risk, compromised gut health as they're shown to impact the gut microbiota, increased cardiovascular risk, and they're connected to neurological health concerns like insomnia, learning difficulties, headaches, migraines, seizures, irritability, anxiety, and depression. I wrote a blog article with more detail on the negative health consequences of artificial sweeteners, which I'll link to in the description below. Suffice it to say, swapping out processed sugar is a great step towards better blood sugar control, and now you're aware of several healthy sugar substitutes for diabetes, as well as which ones to steer clear of. Let me know in the comments if you use any of the sugar alternatives that I've shared in this video and what your thoughts are on them. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button, and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more blood sugar regulation tips and inspiration. Take care, friends. I'll see you next time.